Welcome back to Justice. Joining me now to continue the conversation on President Trump's election and the legal battle, Congressman Jim Jordan. All right, good evening, Congressman. I just had Congressman McCarthy on, and he talked about the fact that you guys made some pretty terrific gains in the House. What do you attribute that to?
Good candidates. I mean, Kevin talked about the number of women candidates we ran, conservative candidates we ran, veterans. I mean, just good candidates running and running on the principles that President Trump has laid out, fighting for the American people. So it was a good night for us. And frankly, if someone would have told the American people a week before the election that we're going to keep the Senate, we're going to pick up 10 or 12 seats in the House, we're going to maintain all the state legislatures, in fact, pick up state legislatures, and President Trump will get 9 million, 10 million more votes than he got last time, but still come up short, no one would have believed that. And that's why you got 73 million people who think something doesn't feel right here, and that's why they want it investigated.
Well, you know, it's interesting. When you think about the fact that 73 million people voted for the president, what is it, 9 million more than last time when he ran for president? And everybody's winning in the lower down ballot. It really doesn't make sense. But, you know, in my open, I referenced some of the affidavits that are part of the lawsuits going on. And the most recent lawsuit was filed yesterday by Linwood in Georgia, where the Secretary of State in Georgia actually entered into some kind of an agreement with Stacey Abrams, who kept suing Georgia, and, you know, made a decision basically, you know, to change the way the ballots were assessed. We're seeing that under the guise of COVID and through other people, other judges and secretaries of state in a rush to do this. How do you think this is all going to end up, Jim?
Well, I mean, we need to investigate. I mean, look, the Democrats spent 4 years investigating the Russian hoax, but they don't want to take 4 weeks to investigate the integrity of this election. When you had all these affidavits, you have all these concerns. You had the situation where 6,000 votes in Michigan went for Biden, but they were actually supposed to go for President Trump. So we need to investigate. And I loved your opening, Judge, because you asked so many why questions. Anytime you're doing an investigation, now I'm involved with lots of investigations in the Congress, you always ask the why questions because that gets to motive. Why didn't Democrats want Republicans to observe the count? Why did it seem like on election night that all the important swing states that kept counting, the president won, but all the important swing states that took a several-hour pause in the count, the president ended up losing? Why did that happen? Why don't the Democrats want to know? And frankly, in the state of Pennsylvania, which I spent 5 days in right after the election, why were some counties allowed to cure their ballots, but voters in those counties could cure their ballots, but other counties they couldn't? Why did some counties allow a pre-canvass of ballots, but other counties didn't? And why did some counties set up temporary satellite voting places, but other counties didn't? And you can imagine which counties did those things and which ones didn't. Those are all those important why questions. And the most important one is, why don't Democrats want to know? Again, they spent 4 years investigating this fake Russia thing, but they can't even spend 4 weeks to get at the integrity of the American election system and figure out what exactly took place. So that's why Americans want this to continue and want to get the truth.
Well, the amazing part is even when they had to actually put truth to the allegation and facts to the allegation of Russia collusion with their own team of, you know, all the pit bulls and their own choice, Mueller, they still couldn't come up with anything. And yet they tore us apart. And now they're saying, you know, I got an email from a friend yesterday, one of my doctors, probably isn't anymore, but he said to me, you know, Jeanine, you have to tell him to just move on. I'm like, oh my gosh, you people for 4 years said he was illegitimate. You made up everything you could think of. You burnt down the cities, and we can't even follow a legitimate legal process to determine whether or not there was some kind of irregularity or illegality.
Yeah, these same Democrats who are telling us to trust the vote, to trust the integrity of this election, were the same ones who told us you could trust the Steele dossier. They were the same ones who said you can trust the anonymous impeachment whistleblower that we never got to cross-examine. Frankly, we don't even know his name. So they're the same people telling us now, oh, that everything is fine. I think we should be able to find out for ourselves. And as I said before, I think 73 million Americans want to find out for themselves, particularly when as you said in your opening, we called this past summer. We put out a report where we said for the first time in American history, you had a major political party You had a major political party say that we're going to try to win this election after the election with all the chaos and confusion around mail-in balloting, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, and that report that you put out in September came to the conclusion that this is ripe for fraud, that it's teed up for corruption, that COVID, you know what I don't understand? If we were able to stand in line to go to Costco, to go to Home Depot 6 months ago, why all of a sudden are people not being allowed or being told it's dangerous for you to go? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something that I'm not getting. But, you know, the issue for all of us is whether or not we're going to be able to establish and legally establish that there was some corruption. When there are so many successes on the bottom of the ballot, down ballot races, I question the decision at the top. Last word. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would just say this. We do need to move away from this mail-in balloting and get to in-person voting, as you said. We had one of our staff persons who works for the committee, who works for our office, who at her apartment in D.C., she got her ballot. 4 other ballots arrived at her apartment for people who did not live there. That is a recipe for disaster, but Democrats knew it. That's why it was part of their House Bill 1, the very first bill they introduced this past Congress. They want this mail-in voting because they know they can exploit it, and they know there's a recipe for disaster. That's why we got to get to the bottom of it and make sure the American people can have faith in our election process as we move forward.
Absolutely. Congressman Jim Jordan, thanks so much. And Corey Lewandowski is